Right here?
Yeah. Yeah, either one. So thank you for joining us. We are live on POZ Impact, Houston's first radio show dedicated to people living with HIV, their friends and family, on Real Talk 100 Radio. We are super excited to have Marc Flores with us. He is running for U.S. Congress District 18. And I think let me help you real quick. Hold on, guys. Stay tuned. We are live.
I'll leave this to you.
I know. This was a little bit complicated. There.
Okay.
Yep. You should be good now.
All right.
So we're going to go ahead and introduce Marc into our network of family. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Like I said, you're listening to Live on POZ Impact. We're Houston's first radio show dedicated to people living with HIV, their friends and family. So Marc, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let's start right off the top and see where it goes. You have a lot. We have 2 hours, so it's a little bit of time. But as I've seen before with talking to different candidates, it just kind of, next thing I know, I'm like, okay, we have to wrap it up because there's so much to talk about. Yeah. And so let's go ahead and just get started.
Yeah, I appreciate it. First of all, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me, Josh, and congratulations on your show here. I think you said you were now doing this for 5 months or so?
Yeah, since June.
And you're at a new location, which looks like it is all suited for exactly what you're doing. So yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for the work you're doing in sharing with people this issue of AIDS. And so I'll share with everybody a little bit about me and how I got to be a candidate. And then I'd love to just field questions from yourself or anybody that's
listening,
watching
yes.
or listening. So yeah, my name is Marc Flores. I'm a candidate for Congress here in the 18th Congressional District. A little bit about me: born and raised in Laredo, Texas, in South Texas, on the border with Mexico. Managed my way through the public school system there. Mom was a teacher who ended up becoming a middle school principal. My dad was a small business owner. My grandmother was a salesman. She was a door-to-door salesman called Stanley Home Products. And my grandfather was a mechanic. He worked on the railroads, working on locomotives, and he was an immigrant. He immigrated to the United States after the Mexican Civil War in the early 1900s, and I grew up in Laredo, graduated there, went on to go to Texas A&M University. So I got a degree there about 19 years ago in construction science, which is in the College of Architecture.
Okay.
And so for about 13 years, I was working as a project manager here in Houston for a construction company. Building hospitals, universities, schools around the city mainly, a little bit outside of the city. And then the last 5 or 6 years, I worked for a real estate developer doing similar work, project management, mainly office buildings. When I made that transition over, prior to that, I'd always followed government and politics in my community. But working 70, 80 hours a week on a job site, it was hard to really find my way into, getting involved in the community like I have here in the last handful of years. So I started volunteering with folks like U.S. Vets that provides housing for homeless veterans here in Houston as a volunteer while I was working. They also, as you can imagine, managing the VA system, for somebody can be quite difficult. So a big part of what they did was helping folks there manage their way through the VA system, as well as doing some job training and transitioning people into temporary housing, transitional housing, and then ultimately, ideally, permanent housing. And so we did that. I volunteered there for a while. A couple years ago, started volunteering again with the Beto O'Rourke campaign for his run for Senate here in Texas. So I managed a grassroots headquarters for the campaign for about 15 months out of my house as a volunteer. We had about 1,000 volunteers come through the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
what was that like?
Yeah,
Having
it was-
1,000 people come into your house
Yeah.
all times of day.
Yes,
Really,
yeah,
you know, I assume.
Yes, it was all times of the day. So I was still working, and so I'd go to work from 7 to 7 or 7 to 5,
Yeah.
whatever I was doing that day. For the first 6 months, they were really just events. So periodic events where I'd allow the campaign to post my address, and I'd host strangers into the house for a live stream with
Yeah.
Beto, or a barbecue, or whatever the case may be. Those organizing events.
Yeah.
He later shared this with me as I was talking to him. I was explaining to him what we were doing. This was early before the primary, and he says, "Mark, you're doing a great job. But you're organizing. You're an organizer there, and so keep it up." And so that's what we did. I mean, people came to our events because of Beto, but they told me they came back because of the community that we had created, and it wasn't just me. And so so we had some events for about, I guess, 3 months, and then we started weekly block walks every Saturday morning. And so I just only have the dog to contend with, and so he's a pretty friendly dog. Everybody really liked him, and so we put one of those key entry or keyless entry doors or hardware sets into the door, and so we had block walks, and then we started having regular office hours in June. And that's when they started this grassroots headquarters effort. And that's when we allowed people to come in during the day. And so we had a team. We had folks come in from, I think it was like 2 to 6 or something like that. And so volunteers would come in.
While you're still working.
I was working. Yeah, I was at work.
You just have people, strangers, coming to your house.
They're not strangers. There were a handful of vetted, amazing people, volunteers that I think most were retired, I'd say. But, leading up to that point, 6-9 months, we had already become friends. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
And so they were people that I relied on and I trusted. And there were a lot of people look at me funny when I say that, but that's what we did. That's what I entrusted in these folks. And frankly, that's what Beto and the campaign had done was motivating enough to do that for them. I mean, I feel like he was somebody that motivated people to do those kinds of things. Somebody like him, at least in Texas, don't come along very often. And they're the kind of people, and we're seeing some in the municipal races here in Houston, where they are good people doing great things, and you want to support them in any way that you can. And so we then transitioned into offers hours Monday through Friday. We had merchandise; people would come purchase that, and then we had phone banks every Tuesday and Thursday night from like 6 to 9 or something like that. And we averaged between those 3 events a week, I think, about 8 people per event. So
that's actually pretty good.
Yes, no,
that's actually
great.
Really good.
No, it was great. I mean, it was crazy. The first block walk we had, I think we had like 12, 18 people or something like that. I was like, great, this is gonna keep up, but the next couple of weeks it was like 1 or 2 people, and so I realized we had work to do, and so we did, and we followed up with folks, and that's the biggest thing about volunteer or those kinds of efforts. It's volunteer work, and so you really got to motivate people to come back out and help. And so not being a pest, but calling and texting and reminding people to come was a big part of what we did, both myself and the volunteers.
So have you incorporated what you've learned from working with Beto into your campaign?
Because
it's similar, but it's different.
It's different. I'm no Beto, first of all, but we're trying to incorporate some of that. But, so we learned a lot of that from the campaign, but frankly they're 2 very different campaigns, and so. We did that for about 6 months in the campaign. The last month we opened up from basically 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I think for the last 30 days of the campaign.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot, and but it was one of the most amazing experiences that I've had, seeing and listening to people. People was the number one thing for me on the campaign. Whether it was the people that we were talking to on our phone banks from Texans all across the state of Texas, to people we knocked on their doors, and just listening to what they said, their thoughts, their opinions. When you knock on someone's door, most folks, no matter what you're doing, don't want to answer the door.
Period.
they're not happy that the doorbell rang or the door.
Absolutely not.
But when you actually, you had like 5 seconds to capture their attention, and most folks, when you let them know why you're there, they want to share with you their issues and concerns in the community. And so, people for me was the biggest thing, and then the volunteers. The volunteers that came and shared stories with me about who they were, why they came. And why they were so passionate about this campaign. That campaign was important to me, and so the campaign. So I did that for about 15 months. Didn't end well. He lost by about 2.5 percentage points, but it was about 10 points closer than anybody has.
For sure. I mean, he became so close. It was like you could taste it.
Yeah. I mean. You can hear, you can feel the excitement. Obviously, he really became popular. I feel like late that summer, before the general, and you see it now. In fact, some of the volunteers that were my friends at that time, or became friends, were telling me toward the end, like, Mark, like, what are we gonna do next? Like, what's the next issue, or a campaign, or a group that we can get involved with to continue this momentum that we've created. And so we're seeing that today, frankly. I feel like his campaign, and there's several people now running for that same seat against John Cornyn this cycle, but I feel like his campaign really was an impetus to what we're seeing today, and that is this motivation of wanting to turn Texas blue. And so I think we're all very excited about that, and I think the motivation in the state continues because of the work that he did.
So, I mean, your opponent is Sheila Lee Jackson, which has a huge name in Texas. Hi, Lady Hell. Come on in, Lady Hell. Yes, come on in. We have a special guest. But Sheila Lee Jackson is, you're running against her. How do you plan on name recognition and, we'll get into her, not her versus you, but policies that she hasn't been able to enact since she's been in Congress, that we're looking for a change. So just because you have a D behind your name, doesn't mean that you're qualified to, you have the issues that, more pertain to somebody. I feel like Beto was like that perfect candidate, and for running for U.S. Senate. So what makes you the perfect candidate to run for U.S. Congress? Yeah,
great question. I get it a lot. I feel like I should maybe start with a little bit about the history of the district. The district, was first created in its current location or form after the 1970 census, and so about early 1970s, the first representative to represent this district was Barbara Jordan.
Yes,
and
correct.
Barbara Jordan was the first African American woman in the Texas Senate. In the Texas Senate, this was in the '60s, in a time when everybody in the Texas Senate was white and was male, and she had done a great job there. And when she started representing the 18th congressional district, a big part of who she was education. She was a strong advocate for education. She said, education provides that economic prosperity that we should all have, and so she was a huge proponent of that for 6 years as she was in Congress. Then Mickey Leland represented the district for about 10 years.
Right.
He also a big fighter for the poor.
Correct.
From the Fifth Ward. He came from the Fifth Ward, and those two issues, frankly, education and poverty, are really the two main issues that our district currently still struggles with.
Correct.
And so, over the last 25 years, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has been representing our district, and I think to most directly answer your question, I'm running to represent the 800,000 people in the 18th congressional district. I hate to couch the campaign as necessarily running against any person.
Correct.
Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has been a fierce advocate on
person.
many issues,
Yes.
all the issues. And when I look at the district, I see these handful of issues that we're still struggling with. They're still the same issues that Barbara Jordan and McKean Leland were fighting for. And when you look at our district, there are those same issues that need attention. We actually have more issues than that time. And one of the other big one is infrastructure. You know, we're living in a time now in Houston where we live in fear. We live in fear of the next flood. You know, every time a dark cloud rolls over this city, we're afraid that our car may flood. We're afraid that our home may flood. And that's not right. It's not the way we should be living our lives. And as a country, we should care, because Houston is not just a city. It's not just an area. It impacts the rest of the country.
Correct.
It does.
So when Houston floods, whether it's the largest medical center in the world, the largest port in the country, or the petrochemical industry on the east side of town, it affects the rest of the country. Gas prices rise and jet fuel prices rise, and so we need to be looking at this from the federal level on a national look to bring the infrastructure that we need to mitigate flooding and mitigate the impact of the continued floods that we're going to have for the next decades. Now, some of these projects these are billions of dollars and projects that will take many years, and so we got to be doing this for the next generation, and we got to be fighting for it, and we got to be fighting for it hard every day. And this is an issue. You know, we're now over coming up on 3 years since Harvey.
Yes.
And it's crazy to think that the day Hurricane Harvey rolled into Houston, the Harris County Flood Control District had over a couple of billions of dollars of projects on their rolls, whether it was in construction, very little of it, in design, very little of it, but predominantly were in conceptual. There were ideas. And now we're getting an influx of dollars from both federal government and from the county, predominantly to remedy the damages from Hurricane Harvey. But we still need billions of dollars to come in for those large infrastructure flood mitigation projects. And this is, when it rains in the region, it just doesn't rain in Houston. It just doesn't impact the county. It affects the entire region.
Yes.
And so we need to provide that regional plan to implement those large infrastructure projects.
Correct.
So that we and our children, we saw this last tropical depression, Imelda, our children at our schools were lived in fear for that day. How do I get home? And our parents were in fear.
How do we get to our children?
How do we get to our kids? I dropped them off this morning. We knew it was going to rain. We didn't know what kind of rain we were going to have.
Yeah. Just didn't know.
And they went off to work, and now you've got the entire city
underwater,
stranded.
Parents stranded from their children,
I was one
and not knowing their safety. And so this is something we shouldn't be living with, and we need to be working on it every day that we're here.
So what would you do? Would you work with Congress, and how do you plan on passing bills through Congress for infrastructure? Because we see that we all talk about infrastructure, but no infrastructure has been passed.
Yeah.
We need to fix our highways. We need to fix our drainage. And it's just not Houston. It's America. America's drainage is going, it floods, there was another city in Winnie. I think they got hit the hardest. They were having water like Harvey did here in Houston. So it's just not it's affecting all of Texas plus all the other states, where we have all these Republicans who are not interested in passing infrastructure. Right. How will you be willing to work with a member of the opposite party to come together and say, hey, this is for not just for me or for our it's for everybody.
Thank
We
you,
all live in
Krista.
this fear
Right.
I'm about to
that
bring you on the show.
any kind of potential rain has the ability to knock us out.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, and it's possible. And so, but it's hard. You know, a lot of people say this kind of infrastructure is a local issue. You know, so you think about
Yes,
city,
yes.
municipalities of their infrastructure, and there's really two components to it, right? It's the municipal utilities, so the storm sewer systems that we walk over every day of our lives here in any city in the country, for that matter. But the fact is that in this case, the federal government needs to get
Come
involved.
visit your church,
And
Pastor Preston.
there are, so Houston's not the only city similar
Yes,
to
Yes.
yes,
okay?
yes.
So when you look at other cities in similar states that are that are affected by climate change, that are affected by weather, that are affected by
climate
infrastructure.
change.
Yes,
Sorry?
climate change.
Yeah, climate
yes,
change,
yes, yes.
And so when you think about these places, there are enough locations around the country and representatives, government officials that can get behind the infrastructure that we know we need around the country. And so Houston's a big part of that. But there are others around the country that we could partner with
Yes.
to bring a bill together, to bring the funding that we need, not only to Houston, but to the country. And that is the kind of effort that we need amongst our representatives all across the country, but mainly here in Houston. If you look at Houston, there's 10 representatives in Congress that represent some part close enough to Houston. So you start looking at the other locations around the country, and that number begins to add up pretty quickly, and you can easily get enough people to get behind a bill like this that we know will affect generations to come.
Yes. Let me ask you. I came in a little bit late. For one, I grew up in Fifth Ward in Acres Home. My family is still there, so I have a lot of questions for you. For one, why I missed it. What made you want to run for our district?
Yeah.
Did y'all cover that?
A little bit, yeah. But
Okay.
go ahead and repeat that
Yes,
because
because
I
I
think it's
have new viewers on.
and it's also
And most of
important
them are
because
from
you
our
do have
area.
he has a really good story.
Okay.
So I want him to repeat it for our listeners.
Okay.
Yes.
I like his story a lot.
Okay.
So
So,
repeat it.
From the beginning?
No, well,
No,
I mean,
that's bits and
give
pieces. Just
us
bring me
our,
up to speed.
the
Yeah.
short clips.
Yeah.
So, in Houston, I've been here in Houston for about 20 years.
What side of town you grew up on?
Actually, this part of town for about 6 years.
Over here?
The apartment
Okay.
on the other side of Astrodome.
Okay,
Yeah.
On
I know what
Fann
you're
and
talking
Greenbar.
about. I know what you're talking about.
So I was there for about 6 or 7 years.
Okay,
Over off Washington Corridor for a handful of years.
I know what you're talking
And then
about.
right now I'm in Shepherd Park Plaza near Pinemont and Ella. So
Okay, I know where that is too.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends and stay in Shepherd Park Terrace,
Mhm.
so I know what you're talking about.
So I'm there now. I've been there about 7 or 8 years.
Okay,
But yeah, so I was in construction, frankly, for the last 20 years.
okay,
As a builder, building schools, universities, and hospitals across the city. Last 5 years, got more involved in my community.
okay,
Prior to that, I was working 70, 80 hours a week, so I had a job then where I got more involved in the community
okay,
and was volunteering with folks like U.S. Vets that provides housing for
okay,
homeless
okay,
veterans
okay.
As a volunteer. And then a couple of years ago, ran a headquarters, a grassroots volunteer-led headquarters for the Bethel Work Campaign in his run for the U.S. Senate.
Okay,
And we had 1,000 volunteers come
Ooh.
through. We knocked on 20,000 doors. We
In his
Good.
house. In his
Yeah.
house.
yeah.
He was
All
having
right.
people literally coming to his house.
all right now. I wasn't invited.
Okay.
We wasn't invited. We love food.
I don't know if there was any food there,
No
but
food?
they were working.
It's a good question. We had food everywhere.
Okay, we'll be there. We love food.
We were really there to work more than anything.
I know. Me and Josh run down the food.
Yeah. So yeah, for about 15 months we did that. We
Okay.
averaged about 8 people per event,
Okay.
and we had a staff. They came into the office, my house, from 2 to 8 Monday through Friday. I went to work because I was
Yes.
working.
Yes. I understand.
And so we had 3 events there. The last 30 days of the campaign we were open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And so yeah, that's kind of
That sounds good.
the work that I did for about 20
Ground
years.
roots. I like that.
And then toward the end of the campaign, there were several people who was like, "Hey, look, we've created this amazing community. Like, what are we going to do next? Like,
Yes,
we've got all
yes.
this work. We've done all this momentum.
Got all these
Like,
volunteers.
what are we? Yeah, what are we?" And so
Yes.
after the election, we started thinking about it. In fact, during the campaign, people would say, well, hey, what, are you running? Or maybe one day you'll run. I said, yeah, one day.
One day
in the future. And sure enough, at the end of the election, I started thinking about it.
The future is now.
Researching it, right?
Yes.
It was just something that I couldn't let go. And
Right.
when I started analyzing or researching the district, I started. I think you were here earlier when I was talking about the history of the district.
Yes.
I saw these issues. Healthcare, education, infrastructure.
Yes.
And I said, and so I started talking to folks here in the neighborhood.
Yes.
I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and they
Sounds
laughed
good.
at me. They said, you're crazy. You can't be done. No matter who you are, or what your name is, or how much money you have, you can't do it. It can't be done. And we don't want to see it hurt. I don't want you to go through all that work and see it hurt on the other end of it. And so, and so I started thinking about it. I said, you know what? This is important. I had just gone through a process in the last 5 years where I started getting, was more involved in the community and met a lot of folks.
Yes,
and learned
yes.
a lot of the good work that people were doing in the community.
Yes.
And then I saw our district, and I saw it for the last 25 years being stagnant on these issues or get worse. And I said, I feel like I think I have the qualities, the leadership, and drive to address these issues in our district. And
Okay.
so we filed in April, and
Sounds good.
like I was telling Josh earlier, I mean, we're not necessarily running technically against anyone. We're just running for the 800,000 people that live in the district.
Right, I understand.
And so that's what we've been doing the last 4 or 5 months.
Yes,
Going to every
yes.
civic club, every super neighborhood meeting with precinct chairs, and listening to folks, frankly. And so whether it's Pleasantville or Settegas or Riverwood or Fontaine or Scenic Woods or Acres Home or Third Ward or Fifth Ward, Washington Terrace, Riverside Terrace, we're getting some amazing feedback from people.
Okay.
Grateful and happy that we're running. Sometimes we get smiles like you're crazy, but oftentimes we get questions, and people want to share with you their issues.
We want to know.
In fact, I was just left a meeting in the Fifth Ward. Called the group that's organizing there for a couple of years now, called Impact Fifth Ward.
Oh yeah,
and
I know
a
them.
big part of what they're doing. If you look at our district, I talked a little bit about trade being a big deal here in Houston. Us having the largest port in the country by tonnage anywhere in the country. And when you look at our district from a satellite, you'll see two of the largest rail yards that you've ever seen in your life. One in the middle of Fifth Ward, and the other in Settegas, just outside the loop on the northeast corner of the Northeast 610 loop.
Because I used to stay, are you familiar down there on Waco and Cold West, the rice mill down there? I stayed right there.
And that train be stopping.
And it stopped. And people used to ask me when I was on the phone, you live on a railroad track? Yeah, because you can actually hear when the windows was up, you can actually hear the trains moving, and you can hear the horns and everything. They're like, do you actually stay on the railroad track? Well, I'm like a few houses from the railroad track, so you're telling the truth. It's right there.
And when that railroad track would just stop,
we gonna go
there for like 4 or 5 hours.
We're not gonna go there.
That's nothing compared to. I remember me growing up listening to the train horns. That was miles away. In that case, it was miles away.
Well, it was 2 houses down
and
from
here
me.
you have the Fifth Ward with the largest rail yard you've ever seen, and it is equidistant to downtown than what the mayor calls the crown jewel of the city of Memorial Park. The Memorial Park and Englewood rail yard are no farther away from downtown, and there's no reason why the Fifth Ward should have an amazing neighborhood after living with this kind of intrusion for the last 80 years.
Yes.
And it may sound as like a heavy lift, but we need to be doing a lot more for Cashmere and Fifth Ward and Settegas. Pleasantville. When it comes to environmental justice and just this.
And what does that look like, though? What does a lot more look like?
Couple of things. Yeah, sure. A couple of things.
And let me ask you something, since you're talking about environmental justice, and I still see it now. Even when I was going to Texas Southern, I kind of have a problem like through our neighborhoods when they're bringing the trains, they're bringing all these hazardous the chemicals through our neighborhoods. And when they get to a certain thing, it's like they just stop right there with all these big hazardous. I mean, the names are so long on these particular ones. And if you're actually sitting there for like a short period of time, I wouldn't even say a long period of time, you can start feeling the suffer of those chemicals that are coming in. So I'm just, how can we even get to stop that, since you're talking about that's a part of our environmental, but I don't see that going through River Oaks or Kingwood or that. Why is it through our area? And like I said, I live 2 houses down from the railroad track, so this was a familiar sight for us and a familiar smell all the time.
Yeah, this is an issue that a lot of Houston doesn't live with.
Yes, yes.
But this part of town does. And
yes.
And so what does it look like? It looks like a couple things. One, there are already some contaminated areas in this area. I was at the Phyllis Wheatley annual tailgate or picnic a couple weekends ago on the northeast side of town, and I was talking to some people there that grew up in the 5th Ward and grew up just like you alongside these railroads, and they remember there being basically contaminated ground area growing up
right there,
and nothing being done to remediate that soil.
And a lot of those trains coming through will be spilling that liquid. It would be all different colors, but the train will go on, and then that liquid would be coming down off of the railroad tracks. And I don't know if a lot of people are familiar. We have like ditches in front of our homes, and it would trickle down in there, and it would stay. And then when it rained, here it is just fuming up everywhere. And even if you call the city or you call whoever, nothing was ever done.
Yeah, so there's an environmental study that's
like
partially
I said, environmental,
done, but not completely done. And so Union Pacific owns those
Union
lines
Pacific,
and those rail yards. And so what it looks like is a handful of things. One, the areas that have been contaminated for years, in some cases decades.
Yes, decades.
In fact, in this case, decades. It needs to be fully researched, test welled, reported, and remediated, so that there's no more environmental impact to people in the area. The second thing is the industry there, Union Pacific, other groups need to, we need to sit down with the community. So I'm not going to sit here and say this is what needs to be done. We need to hear from the people that have been living alongside these railroads and industry for decades. I was talking to somebody over an event online a couple months back, and he was one of the conductors or engineers on the train. And he told me, it's just, look, we're told to move this train from here to there, and we know we're blocking Lions, a major thoroughfare through 5th Ward, and through Denver Harbor, and through our district, frankly. And with really no concern with the traffic that's being held. And you never know when there's an emergency, and when an emergency vehicle may need to get from one end of that train or that road to the other end of the road. And so that's another issue that needs to be addressed.
And another issue I don't hear anybody talking about, like those trains will be there and the children are jumping over those trains, and we've lost a lot of kids from injuries, but we don't never hear about that.
Yeah. And so I was out there several months back, and you really got to be there to see how the trains and
you have to see it.
Rail yards,
and people don't believe what we're saying. They will not believe it.
Yeah, they're basically run up to a hill and run down uncontrolled to be connected with different trains going to different locations around the country and at the port. And it's probably the most unsafe way to transfer trains. And what happens is exactly what you're talking about. And the other thing is traffic. I mean, over the years, we've built bridges over some of these
the railroads.
But I still look at this part of town and this neighborhood, an amazing neighborhood. And
we left out.
It doesn't need to be this way.
Historical. There's a lot of historical there.
Yeah. I mean, there are amazing people that grew up, legends of the community that grew up in this neighborhood.
Mickey Leland, Barbara Jordan.
So that's a little bit of what it looks like.
Yes.
But we need somebody fighting for this, and the railroad system is governed or overseen by the federal government, and we need a strong advocate. Now, it's sometimes hard to address these issues. You've got the largest railroad company in the country in Union Pacific, a $30+ billion
Yeah.
company. But it takes, some of the most important things that we can do are some of the hardest things that we can do, but we need advocates like this group, Impact
Yes,
Fifth Ward.
yes,
Please look them
Impact.
up on Facebook.
Mhm.
We just left their meeting, unfortunately, and had to leave.
Yes,
There's
yes.
two Sandras there, they're leading the effort. They're going to have an event, strike, or a walk on the 21st of
Yes.
October
That's right.
to bring, shed a light to this issue in
Awareness.
Union Pacific in the area. And so these are the things that we can be doing.
Yes.
And it's often the case that a community like the Fifth Ward, who may in some cases predominantly be concentrating on putting food on the table,
Yes. You're
just
right.
taking care of their families and
Just
their
trying to
school,
maintain day by day.
find a job, get the next job, and so the last thing they
Keep
have
the lights on.
keep the lights on. So the last
Basically.
thing they have time for advocating for
fight.
issues
We
like
don't
this.
have time. You got to
And so
keep
they
the
need
lights
the
on.
rest of Houston to be advocating
Yes.
for them in this fight, and so that's what we're there to do. And anything that we can do to help them or shine a light on this issue, we're going to do.
You're so correct. And another issue I have, as being a previous school teacher, I have a summer reading program and an after school program over there in the Acres Home area. And I'm finding a lot of my children are like 2 to 3 grade levels behind basically in reading. And I'm giving them a little bit more. But I'm in the process of opening a charter school in the Acres Home area. I don't know if you're a fan of charter schools or not, but a lot of people are not. But I'm not the one. I started educating the kids before we even got any money. So what is your view on how you can help us in the district with education?
Yeah. So it's amazing. We've been to almost every corner of the district, knocking on doors,
Okay.
or civic club, or super neighborhood meeting.
Yes.
And the one issue when I'm talking to people at their doors, every corner of the district, frankly, is education.
Yes.
That everyone agrees we got to be doing a better
We
job.
gotta do something for our
on education,
children.
right? We're the adults in the room.
Yes.
And we understand that how we educate our young people leads to a stronger, better society. And we need to be doing everything we can for them. They're our most vulnerable. They're the ones who we should be looking out for.
Yes.
And so, as a member of Congress, there's some folks had told me early on. I was like, oh, don't talk about education, Mark.
Yeah.
It's a local issue.
Yes.
There's really not much you can do. It's school board. It
Yeah,
is
school
the state of
board.
Texas,
That's
which it
what I
is.
was told. It was
It
out of your
predominantly
hand.
is a school board.
Yes, you have nothing to
issue.
do with that.
And the and the state. However, there is a lot of funding that comes from, and additional funding that can come from the federal government through
Yes.
Title I funding
Yes.
for our schools that are in high poverty neighborhoods.
Yes.
And also through HHS has some funding, but most importantly is to bring the weight of the seats of this office as a member of Congress to shine a light and advocate
Okay.
for the most important issues here in the district, in education, locally, with the
Yes,
school board,
yes,
with
yes.
the state of Texas, our state representatives and state senators, to make sure that we're addressing those most important needs. And so one of the most important things that I hear from our district is pretty diverse. It has some areas or neighborhoods that have high poverty,
Yes.
and it has some areas that are very affluent.
Yes.
But the number one thing I hear, or one of the biggest things I hear, are putting a large emphasis on vocational
Yes,
programs in our high
training.
schools.
Yes.
North Forest, HCC just
HCC.
opened a North Forest campus this past summer, this past
Yeah,
September.
in the
Yeah.
summer.
And they have now about 400 or 500 students going to school there.
Ooh, good.
In fact, I was speaking with a senior in the Setagas community who's taking a welding class at
All
HCC
right.
North Forest.
Love it.
He is a
Wow.
senior, and the reason
Love
is
it.
because it's free. So
Wow,
they've
that's
got
awesome.
And
an
he'll make a
amazing
good
infrastructure.
salary, a good
Yes.
wage.
Yeah. So they've got an amazing infrastructure there for these trades. So they're welding, plumbing, electrical, and
Like we
automotive.
used to
That's
have.
right. And well, and this is this is at the community college level. And
Yes.
so if you're a senior, you can go there, basically free tuition, and get
love
educated
it.
on these issues. But it's harder to get our young people into those spaces
Yes.
after they've left high school.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've got them in our public school system, in our K through 12 system. We need to capture them and provide them
Early
that option
on.
if they
Yes.
want to.
If they want to, it's other
Opportunity.
options.
That's right. To learn a skill.
Yes,
And
a trade.
a trade
Yes,
if they want
need
to.
yes,
And
military,
then, yeah, and so that way,
entrepreneurship.
yeah, and so that way when they graduate from high school,
They have something
whether
to
that
look
is they
forward
want
to.
to go volunteer, whether they want to go go to college, or maybe for those
A
that
trade school.
picked
Trade
up a,
school, yeah.
a vocation in high school, could
Yeah.
even go right into the workforce.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, that's my background is in construction, and I came across so many people that had gone through their careers and were then project managers, foremen, superintendents, and
Yes.
started out in the field
Of construction.
as out in the field, you know,
Yes,
doing
yes, yes.
carpentry work, doing electrical work. And so this is something that I hear a lot from
Yes,
people,
that's what we're
specifically in
talking
North
about.
Forest, Northeast, Pleasantville, 3rd Ward, 5th Ward.
And I want to bring back home economics too.
Mhm.
Just the basics of that, like chef, you know, wanting to be a chef or a seamstress or something
Mhm.
like that. They make a whole lot of money too.
Yeah, I was there's a young
Take
man.
your suit to get an alteration. You like, whoa! I just might as well buy a new suit. You know.
There's a young man
They
I-
make
I,
a lot
I
of
met
money.
in Pleasantville. He's waiting to go to barbershop.
Yes,
School, barber school.
college.
And
Yes.
so yeah, it's those kinds of things that
we need to encourage our youth.
we and a lot of it just is education, not education in the books, but
No.
educating our young people and
Yes,
letting them
yes,
know
yes.
what options and opportunities are out
But
there.
nobody never discussed those with our children.
Well, and the infrastructure is there. I mean, our state and our federal government has the infrastructure that
Mhm.
says, look, here are the career paths
Yes,
that
yes.
you can implement in your schools around the state, whether that is you have a career path to be an engineer or a career path to be a plumber.
Computer engineer.
But we're not advocating for those vocational type programs as much as we are able to, and we also need the additional funding to do that.
Yeah.
Mm.
But what about? So I was looking at your website, and it says 4 schools in Texas potentially are in the they can be shut down due
Yes,
to
yes.
demand improved required, and 3 of those 4 are in Texas
our area.
in your district.
Yeah.
We
We need
cash
funding.
variants.
We do need a teacher salary increase.
Yes.
Can Congress pass like a mandate to increase teacher salaries and to provide adequate education? So say okay, everybody's gonna go to preschool. Everybody gets like when you're in pre-K or whatever all the way, but we also have to pay our teachers. Our teachers are one of I think the lowest paying salaries. My
That's
friend
why a lot of them have 2 and 3 jobs.
my friend, he lives in Germany, and it took him like 8 years to graduate as a teacher in Germany, but now he is making a killing. He's making like over $100K a year as a brand new teacher,
Wow.
But they
I need to
respect
go
their
to
teacher.
Germany.
Yes,
I need to
yes.
go to Germany.
They respect their teachers enough to say that
Yes.
you guys are the ones teaching our kids. So
Our
we
next
need
generation.
we need to give you money
All right now.
to making sure that you're able to dedicate your time because you have to grade papers.
Yes.
You're buying all this stuff, and these teachers can barely make ends meet. They have to work summer school. They have to work as an Uber driver,
In the evenings.
in the evenings just to get by. That should not be our education system in the United States.
Right.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
it's something I saw share with you earlier. My mom was a teacher.
Mhm.
Yes.
She was a PE teacher. She
Oh,
went-
okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they have PE anymore, but she was a PE
They have
teacher.
it once a week.
Yeah.
They have. She was a PE teacher. She went back to college to get her master's, and she ended up becoming a middle school principal.
Okay.
But I remember growing up in the summertime in her schools, and
Yes,
so
yes.
whether it was helping the teachers unload their stuff at the
Load of
beginning
stuff. Yep.
of the school,
Decorate
or
the
loading
room.
it back up, yeah. And what I saw, or even just unloading the books and moving
Yeah.
them into storage at the end of every year, or
That's
pulling them out at the
right.
beginning of the next year. But what I saw is I saw a lot of motivated and passionate people
Yes.
care
Definitely.
about
We do.
educating young people.
We
Yes.
do.
And they gave extra time out of their personal life.
That we don't get paid for.
They give financially
Yes.
to decorate their classrooms
Yeah.
and provide other instructional material in the classrooms because they care so much about educating young people. And so I feel we have a lot of great teachers, but we got to be giving them more pay.
Yeah.
We got to give them more tools. to execute on their passions. And so the funding for additional teacher pay traditionally or comes through the states.
Yeah.
In this past legislative session, there were some more funds allocated for teachers' pay and for funding education across the state in general, but it was really just getting the budget back to the cuts that the state had done, I think roughly about a decade ago. And so they had, about a decade ago, had cut the funding to our public school systems here in Texas. And this past legislative session, they just took those back up to where they were, not to
Increase it, yeah.
For inflation and other increases that we should have had, but it's a first step. And so, yes, we do need more funding for our teachers so that we can both retain the great teachers that we have, but we can also attract good teachers into the classroom.
Also about like healthcare, are you a Medicare for all person? Like, do you believe in Medicare for all?
Yeah.
If we do get, let's say, Bernie Sanders, or we get a president, in the White House that says, okay, I'm willing to give everybody health care. Is that something that you would vote for,
So healthcare is one of the most important things. Another important thing that we got to be doing for our community. How can we go about our life and our work and our business if we don't have sound mental health and good physical health? How are we able to provide for our children, for our family, for ourselves, go to work, get a job, etc., if we don't have good health? And the question then is how do we achieve that? There are a handful, mainly in general, a handful of bills in Congress, everything from an enhancement of the Affordable Care Act to Medicare for all. And there's still some evaluation coming through the CBO to grade and price out Medicare for all. So we're still waiting on some information on what the impact would be for the program. But I believe that there is or should be a stepped process to get us to a place where everyone is covered. Healthcare is covered for everybody. Right now, the Medicare for All program is a pretty short fuse. It's 3 or 4 years to get there, wiping out all of the private insurance. I'm for definitely immediately a public option that will provide those who currently don't have healthcare coverage, and those who have healthcare coverage but have a healthcare plan that's too expensive that they can't use. Their premiums, their co-pays, their deductibles are so much that they just don't use them. And the idea behind the public option is to provide them, both those who are not covered and those who have health care, but a poor plan, frankly, to come out of the private insurance program and into the public option and provide that good quality health care.
So is that a yes? I mean, I don't want to,
Yeah,
because I don't want you to go there and say, I want healthcare for everybody.
Right.
And I'm not looking for somebody who's going to be voted into office and be like, oh, I need another 4 more years. No, I need this to be done in 4 years.
Right.
I don't need 8 years. I need this to be done now. People are dying because they don't have access to healthcare. People are dying because they don't have access to their diabetes medication. Mm-hmm. People are dying because they don't have access to their HIV medication. This is a problem that we are seeing. We don't need to look at the budget. We know we have money. So the budget, looking at the budget is really like a last part. Let's, at least for me as somebody who does not have insurance and does take my, I get funding through Ryan White, thankfully. Mm-hmm. But if I didn't, I really would not be able to take my HIV medication. I would not be able to afford a $2,000 copay, $2,000 for one medication, and I have to take 2. Right. And so, $2,000 a month, it's unachievable.
You still have to live.
You still have to live. Even if I could afford $2,000 a month, I probably would not be paying it out of just the spiteness that is so much money.
That's
you know,
too much.
and that is my life that you guys are dealing with. That is people's lives that you guys are dealing with.
Right.
So what we need is we need a plan that is not going to say, let's look at this. We need, you know, I like that. I like what you're saying is that, you know, you are for like everybody can buy into it. Sure, but I don't want to eliminate the private insurance companies.
Right.
But the private insurance companies haven't done anything for us in the begin with.
Right.
We had
High
to, you know,
premiums.
Obama had to put in law saying that you could not put, you know, if you had discriminate against somebody who had a pre-existing condition.
Cancer,
You know,
HIV,
if you had a pre-existing condition, being you know,
anything.
pregnant was a pre-existing condition, you could not get covered through your insurance. So the healthcare insurance companies, the private insurance companies, haven't done anything to say that they would do something better. We already know they're not going to. They are you know, they want the most profits for the most money.
Yes.
And for the little care that they can provide. They deny. I was a biller before my lifetime, you know, and I know Blue Cross Blue Shield. They are the worst providers. I mean, to pay as a provider, they will not pay. You have to send them a letter saying you have to pay me the right amount of money. This is what it is. Appeal. A year later, they may kick you a little bit of something. You have to appeal that little bit of kick of something, and then 2 years later, they're like, okay, we'll go ahead and give you 80%. They're like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and take this 80% because I'm tired of fighting you.
Yeah.
But that's 2 years of fighting with somebody that's taking my time and money to approach this when we know that they're not doing a good job. You know, so we need healthcare for people who are homeless, who don't have an ID. We need healthcare for people who can't afford that $2,000 copay. So what my answer is, you know, what I'm looking for is yes,
Yeah.
I want somebody who's going to vote for a Medicare for All type program that, you know, it's not going to be cut into pieces and the next person down the line can,
Right.
you know, in 4 more years from now, we have a new president and then we have new Congress and it just goes up in smoke. So what we need is something that is now.
Right.
In the first 2 years, or you know, in the first year that people are elected, you know, I want people to start working. They're like, oh, it takes time.
Right.
Everything takes time, but
Yeah.
we have the money. We have the money to go to war. We have all kind of money to go to war,
True.
but we have no money to spend on people who are dying because they cannot get access to healthcare. People or the GoFundMe, I think they would go away. Because everything GoFundMe is usually is for healthcare. I need somebody to help me pay for my living expenses because I have cancer now. I can't afford, or even when you're dying, you know, if you die, you're left with the funeral costs $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 bare minimum. You know, so I feel like that's also something we should look into, paying, like having state charges for funeral costs as well too. You know, part of your healthcare covers you when you die. Your burial as well too. I mean, we all have to get buried some way, somehow. So maybe the first $1,000. So that's something maybe you guys can consider out there, spending some more money for. You know, we all have to die at some point or another.
True.
So why are we not focusing? Healthcare is for we want people to live longer, but
We want people to live.
yes.
We want people to be
Have
healthy.
a quality of life.
We want people to, pursue their dreams, and we
Yes.
can't do that if we're sick. And so,
True.
to answer your question, there's several, like I started to share with you. There's a handful
Yeah.
of bills in Congress, and there is a bill that's basically Medicare for America or X or some healthcare X or something along those lines. But basically, what it does, so the number is 330 million people in the country. I think it's something like 180 million or so are have their health care from their private employer. Another, I think it's 80 or 100 million Medicare, Medicaid, and then you got this number of 30, 40 million people that are uninsured. And so between this public option, between an expansion of Medicare, and you're able to cover everybody. We can work through the details, or we can pull out the details of that bill, but basically everyone is covered between private insurance and the expansion of Medicare, or basically two buckets, right? Between for those who, because there's at least 100 million people in the country who get their health care from their private employer.
Yes.
Yeah, but maybe they wouldn't want to, because
That's
if
right.
you switch employers, you lose your health
Right,
insurance.
You
right.
lose.
And so providing these alternatives creates a more competitive market,
Yeah.
right? Because right now, the 180 million people or so that get their health care from private insurance really boils down to just a handful, if that, of healthcare providers. And so it's
Yes.
an uncompetitive market. And so by providing these additional public government-funded programs, health insurance programs, which we already know succeed, right? We know that Medicare is a successful,
Yes.
a good healthcare program. Those who are enrolled enjoy it. Those who administer it well. And so keeping that, providing this option, making sure everyone is covered, and allowing those who don't like their private insurance or healthcare to roll off of it and pick up one of these other options. And for when those people who change jobs now have an opportunity to pick up one of these, what you'll see two things. You'll see a competition in the market, prices will go down, and two, a lot of people are saying that you'll see the private industry market dwindle, because we know these government healthcare programs over time will dominate. They'll perform better. And so, but initially the idea or the plan is to cover everybody.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take that. Let's move on to gun reform. There has been several shootings here in Texas lately. You know, the big one is El Paso.
Yes.
Yes. One not that far from Houston. We had a shooting here, and I can't remember the name of the town, but it's so frequently. We've had like 300 shooters already, and it's not even the close of the day, the end of the year yet. You know, as Congress, do you support passing like a gun reform? Maybe like repassing the AR-15 or the assault weapons ban that was passed, and they said beforehand, before it got rejected, or it expired, and they let it expire for whatever the reason was, and they didn't renew it. But we didn't really have this many killings before. Now it's just out of control. So would you support gun reform in the manner of making sure that everybody's like, oh, you're taking our guns, but why do you need an assault rifle?
Yeah.
I mean, what is the point of having an automatic weapon? Who are you shooting? Where's the military?
Yeah.
Are we at war? And I missed this?
The Wild West.
Yes.
Like it used to be.
Yeah, the answer is yes. You can go to our website. We've got some more information there on it. But, we need to be doing a handful. First of all, there's already a bill that the House of Representatives has passed for universal background checks that's sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk. Unfortunately, the U.S. Senate is in a state now where it doesn't really do much. The only thing that it does is approve the judges that the president sends down to them. But yes, we need to pass a universal background check. I remember many years ago, I was visiting a friend, and her husband shared with me that he had an AR-15. And so he took me upstairs, went into his bedroom, pulled out his AR-15 from his gun case, and he was very excited. This was about 2008. This was when Obama was about to take office, so everybody felt like everyone's going the government was going to come and take everyone's guns, and so it was a mad rush for ammunition, weapons, all across the country. And he was so excited, it cost thousands of dollars for this weapon. And I didn't grow up in a household with weapons, but when I came to Houston, I did go hunting, and the number one thing that I saw was those that own guns by and large, are responsible gun owners. They understand and know the most important thing in their firearms and their weapons is safety. And so I don't want to take anything away from all of the responsible gun owners, but for those who have these AR-15s, I look at it and I say, like, what do you need that for? Like, and here's the answer. It's cool. it's cool. Like it's a from their
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
They see this weapon of war. It is short. It is powerful. It is black. It looks
Yeah. It's
amazing.
cool.
And it's maybe it helps their manhood or whatever it is,
macho.
right? And so, but that's really it. They'll shoot it 2 or 3 times maybe in a year. They'll go to a range and they'll shoot it responsibly. But what is it for? And so now we've got these weapons that were basically designed for war and are used on the battlefield, generally speaking. And we now see people of unsound mind in general, in some way or form, that are equally gravitating to these weapons. And I look at the Second Amendment, and I look at the reading of it, right? We have this right to form a militia and bear arms, right? Those who founded this country had just revolted against those that they were being governed by, or ruled over, and they wanted to give the same right that they had to revolt to the people that they chose to govern. And so we fast forward 230 plus years, and we have these weapons out on the street, but they're not for militia, they're for recreation. And so I am for if we're going to remove some rights that some say we may have within the Second Amendment, I am all for removing the right to purchase these kinds of weapons if it makes it just a little bit harder for somebody who's trying to do harm to themselves or to their community, or like we saw in El Paso, people of a certain race, or like we saw in South Carolina, people of a certain race. If it makes it a little bit harder for somebody who wants to do harm, I am all for not manufacturing and not selling those weapons. We've done it before. You talked about it earlier in the late 90s and early 2000s. We had this ban on assault weapons. There's no reason why we can have that again. We should have that again.
What about ammunition? I mean, I think it's just completely crazy that you can buy unlimited at any given time. I mean, why do you need unlimited ammunition? Why do you need, shouldn't that be raising some flags if I'm here purchasing, like 10 cases of ammunition? Sir, what are you going to do with this?
Are we planning a war or what? What you going to do?
Yeah. And it's to shoot people. But nobody asked any questions about that. People, we saw the shooter in Vegas.
Yes.
He had suitcases of suitcases of suitcases of suitcases filled with ammunition. For what? Yeah. Nobody raised a red flag. Nobody said ding, 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 ding. Like, if you buy so much Tylenol, if you buy so much, like
you go to
CVS pharmacy, you gotta show you can only buy a certain amount of month, in a month.
Sudafed. Yeah.
Hello, why can't we do this with?
What about mental illness? Aren't you supposed to do a background check before I come in the pawn shop or come wherever you purchase guns? Do a background
universal
check.
Background
How does
checks
that go? I don't know.
Not everybody's required. So right now, this is not universal background check. So if you purchase a gun from a legal gun place store, they will do one. But if you purchase it from online, I don't think pawn shops do them. And I don't think online does it, and I don't think gun shows do it either. So
basically, you're saying anybody can get a gun that wants a gun.
Or a friend of friend. I can sell you. If I have a gun, I can sell you.
I just go to the streets.
Yeah, so, it's a capacity, right? Magazine capacities and the amount of ammunition we can purchase needs to be regulated as well. I mean, we saw this in the shooting in Ohio, I believe.
Yes.
That murderer had a high capacity. I mean, 100 rounds into one weapon. Fortunately, crazy enough, the law enforcement responded in 1 or 2 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And had they not been able to respond that quickly, many more would have died, because he had the capacity of this 100-round magazine. And so, we need to remove those from the marketplace. 100 people die every day of gun violence, right? And so the numbers break down roughly, half of those are death by suicide. And so another part of gun reform is requiring people to lock up their weapons, because sometimes there are
Yes.
people in our community
Yes.
who are in a tough time or part in their life
Yes.
and see this as a way out and can feel and be in a place where they feel like no one else, that there's no one else that they can turn to. And unfortunately, when somebody chooses this option, they are more likely to die by suicide than any other method. And so this is another part of the gun debate, is we need to be requiring people lock up their weapons. I was volunteering with an amazing group, Moms Demand Action. Several
Yes,
months
yes,
Yes,
they've been on
yes.
that show. Yes.
Yes.
and they were giving out cable locks that you're able to put into your firearm through the chamber. So it's a cable that you run through the chamber, you lock it up. You don't just put it on, it's not a trigger lock, you actually run it through the chamber.
Yes.
And we gave out, everyone that came to our table wanted one. And I asked them, I said, well, do you have any weapons in your household? Most people said, or a lot of people said they did. I said, well, do you go?
This is Texas, though.
Yeah,
and, and then I said, well, and those who didn't, I said, well, do you have children? Do you take your kids to other places, other homes? You never know if somebody may have a weapon or the firearm. So you know what? Give me one of those cable locks.
Just
My
in case.
friend or my cousin or my
Yes.
brother or my sister has a weapon or may have a weapon. I'll try to get it on them. And so that's another part of the campaign, is to educate people and require people to lock up their firearms. And this is what we saw in the Newtown murders in Connecticut.
Yes.
You had somebody who we knew was two issues, right? Unstable, but went into an unlocked gun safe and used a weapon from there to murder these young people, these children, these kids, third graders. And so, yeah, there's a handful of things that we need to be doing better when it comes to guns in America.
Friends, if you guys are just tuning in, you are listening to POZ Impact. We are Houston's first radio show dedicated to people living with HIV, their friends and family, on Real Talk 100 Radio. We have been talking with Marc Flores. He is running for Congress, District 18. And we have just been talking a little bit about everything. So if you have questions, the phone lines have been super, super silent for whatever reason. But if you have questions,
Listening.
281-318-8650. This is a time you can ask somebody who's running for Congress. What is his plans? They have a lot of power that they hold.
Yes, they do.
And they have the ability to impact our lives. So it's really important to vote for somebody that you believe in, and somebody that is willing to have change in the community, and who's been a grassroots event, who's been there, from day one. He's been volunteering,
Yes.
All of that. So this is actually really important information too that he's giving us,
Right.
from volunteering with Beto to now running for office.
That's great.
The people who are running for office, these are activists as well too. We need to make sure we give them a voice.
Yes.
And going back to our questions, can we talk about the minimum wage? The minimum wage is $7.25. I'm not even sure. I think it's increased like $1 or $2 since I was a kid. I think when I started working, it was like $5.50 or $5. I think it was like that.
Yeah.
And it's like 20 years later, we're at $7.25, and 20 years later, a house that used to cost, you can buy a house for $100,000. Now it's $400,000 easily, but yet you're still making $7.25. Are you for $15 minimum wage act?
Yes, I am, and people, we can't live on $7.25
No.
now. Okay, frankly, and we approach this issue, this struggle in our country, every 15 or 20 years. And so when you look at the state minimum wages around the country, ours is one of the lowest, $7.25. There's some states like Oregon has 10, 12, I think $12 an hour. And so yes, we do need to increase our minimum wage. And I go a step further. We're smart enough to understand that this is a good minimum wage for the country. And we're also smart enough to know that we don't just need to set it and forget it. We can include in legislation for it to adjust periodically based on inflation, based on region, based on different metropolitan areas, so that we don't have to continue to struggle with this fight in another 5 years or another 10 or 15 or 20 years. Because we know it takes time. It's a hard struggle, but we don't need to be doing all of that hard work every 10 years. We know that we can review and update our minimum wages around the country periodically every 5 years. And so that's something that we need to be doing and including in our next minimum wage bill.
So that's like the 725 is for like normal workers, but what about those people who work off of tips, waitresses, bartenders? I think theirs is like 225 or 215, something ridiculous. I mean,
It's ridiculous.
I'm like, I don't even know how people are like, oh well, they make tips, and so you base your entire income on tips. If you don't make any tips,
You don't have no money.
you have no money, because that $80 paycheck for 40 weeks is not going to cover your rent.
Or what if nobody comes in to eat that night?
Oh,
Yeah.
Or it's a slow week.
Yeah.
Or your hours are cut. You know, and so it's that needs to be abolished. We need to have
Thank you.
a straight minimum wage,
Yes.
and not have people, feel like they gotta perform.
Yes.
And for getting paid when they're
Yeah.
not there for that. They're there in the service industry because they care about serving people. They care about hospitality, and that's the passion they have. They're not there to put on a show, and so that's for other folks, not for wait staff.
That's amazing. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that, but it's absolutely crazy that we expect our waiters to make all their money off of tips.
It don't look like that.
But something that came to my mind was Andrew Yang, and when we're talking about some money, if should Andrew Yang win, which is a long shot, but he's been doing pretty good so far, and his whole thing is the $1,000 a month. Would you support, should he win? Would you support his bid for the UBI for everybody to get $1,000 a month?
Frankly, I haven't looked at it. Frankly, I've been concentrating on our campaign.
Yes,
Running for Congress
I know that's
right.
is a lot, and so
Yes.
I do follow the campaigns that are the folks that are running for president around the country, the debates, etc. We just had the debate here at TSU a couple of weeks back, and I follow the policies and the plans that the candidates, all amazing candidates, including Andrew Yang, are putting forward and talking about. That is one of the policies that, frankly, I just haven't researched and looked into. I don't, and so
You're
I
not
can't
gonna
give you an
comment.
answer.
Okay.
I can't give you an answer
Okay.
on that one.
All right.
But the numbers I don't know. What I do know is the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea is that we should be providing for those in our country, right? I mean, it's part of this country is to provide for the welfare so that everyone can pursue happiness. And so that's for me, when I look at his plan or hear about his proposal, is to provide for our for people in the country so that they can achieve what they desire. And so that I support. The actual
Amounts.
details of the policy I'm not well versed in.
It just was brought to my attention just because it is a good idea that extra $1,000 or that extra $500 a month that you always have to have. You will always have this money. So no matter, you always have this income coming in. So no matter what's happening in life, you can count on at least this little bit of money.
Yeah.
And a lot of people look at this like as a handout, but I do know as kids or as young adults, your parents didn't have a lot of money.
No.
Raising a child is expensive.
Yes, it is.
So if you can allocate, and that's why they want child support. They have these ridiculous amount of money, for child support. So maybe can go down.
Yeah.
If everybody's receiving, this $5 or $1,000 income, but I want to talk also about food insecurities. We have, in Third Ward, we don't really have a grocery store. They're
No, we
open.
don't either.
HEB is popping up grocery stores all over. There's 2 in the Heights now.
Yes, they're
you know,
gorgeous.
Nice, but we need also
don't have
plans for to, the administration currently is stripping away benefits for people who have like SNAP and WIC, those people who are food assistants. I feel like they should be able to get to where they need to be at, and without having to kind of like beg for this. And so what is your idea about like giving a little bit more money, or keeping the program but maybe including more funds, or I'm not even sure, but I just feel like to be able to use that money as well too with like online grocery stores, like there's I can't remember what the name of the company
Like
is at the
Prime,
moment.
Amazon had one Prime. A lot of the college students use those.
To be able to shop online and bring your grocery stores to you.
Yes.
There's a company that offers for like fresh vegetables
Yes.
that you can buy, you subscribe to it. That's great, but it doesn't accept SNAP.
They don't know.
So when that's a program that we should look into, that people don't have the time and resources. It's only for the rich. Only the rich people get to have their groceries delivered.
Right.
But if HEB could accept SNAP,
Right.
online and then deliver,
Yeah.
people would be okay. I can pay this maybe $5 fee for my groceries to be delivered, but at least the $80 or the $100 of my food is
And
covered.
that $5 would be cheaper than Uber or trying to get to the bus.
Yes.
It still would be
Yes.
cheaper.
And your food's there when you're ready.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is an issue in our district, in the 18th
Yes.
congressional district, in several locations. Side note is the last month or so in the Sedagas neighborhood, they've actually partnered with Habitat for Humanity
Yes.
and been helping them as a volunteer build a community garden.
Yes.
And this is
That's
something
what we're
they've
doing.
been seeing or looking forward to for a while, and this does several things. This provides, in this case, seniors an activity to do during the day. It also provides healthy food options to people in the community. And finally, it converts a otherwise blank or blighted property into
valuable resource.
Right. Yeah. So it's now a community garden, and that doesn't also just look good for the community, but it
Everybody
allows
benefits.
people to see something good going on in their community.
Yes.
And it motivates people, and it's not just another blighted vacant
And how
lot.
we was doing our community garden, because we have the school, we have a lot of farmers, in Acres Home, so
Mhm.
they will be
Sure.
donating their time to teaching the children farming and gardening. Now, during the week, we will eat those fresh fruits and vegetables during the school day, and then on Friday, those vegetables will be sent home with the children for them to eat. And because Acres Home now have the farmers market, we will have our own booth there. So we will be teaching the children entrepreneurship. We can still incorporate math in there because they're going to have to calculate how much per pound for each one. We'll be teaching them customer service skills, so they still will be learning in the process. And then that money will go into account, like for the kids, if they would like to go to a movie or they would like pizza bonding or something like that for the kids, some fun activity. And what's left, we have a lot of seniors in Acres Home have to make the choice between food and medicine. So we want to make sure our seniors are taken care of in Acres
Yeah.
Home.
Yeah. So in addition to Acres Home, another area, Pleasantville.
Yes.
if
Oh,
folks,
yes.
Folks there
Pleasantville.
gotta get on a highway and go 3 miles or so to the nearest old Fiesta.
Old Fiesta, not the old
Yeah,
Fiesta.
Folks in Third Ward
Yes.
have a relatively centralized HEB on Old Spanish Trail about to close
Yes.
because now they're building a nice new one further from the community along 288.
Yes.
And so this is some of the feedback that we got from several people in the community there in Third Ward questioning
Yes. Yes.
why or now there's going to be some people who used to walk
To the grocery store.
original
Can't
HEB,
do it
and
now.
now just where this property happens to be, it's really hard to get to. It's
Yes,
it's
you have to
it's on
have
288
transportation.
and McGregor.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking
and
about.
so it's not in the middle of the neighborhood like it was,
Mm-mm.
and so that's an issue for that neighborhood. And then you go into North Forest,
Yes,
Setagas, Fontaine, Scenic Woods, where there are only 99-cent stores and gas stations.
That's
and
it.
this is where a lot of people go to eat.
they have no options.
And the options are limited. The prices are high, the
Yes.
food quality is low. And
And
so
you'll run out of your SNAP and your food stamps before the end of the month, paying the extra high prices.
and so you see people having to go miles to
Yeah.
other neighborhoods, 2 or 3 neighborhoods away, just to go to a grocery store. And it's something that we need to be working more on and bringing
Yes, yes.
these smaller groceries stores that are coming into the country that provide good food into,
I like that idea.
and getting them into different neighborhoods. But we also need to be pushing our private companies,
Yes.
HEBs and Kroger's and all these, to say, hey, look, these are communities that we need you in.
Yes,
And let's
yes.
partner in some way
That
to
sounds
get you
good.
in there to provide options for people in these communities who don't have these options. And this is not just to have a grocery store
No,
for convenience.
No, it's
This
not
is
convenience.
providing options for healthy food options.
Yes, yes.
I mean, and this goes
Yes.
to healthcare.
Yes,
Yes.
This goes to kind of a good way of life
yes.
in our communities.
We can cut down on that obesity
You know,
too.
to having access to fresh fruit, vegetables, a meal plan that you can get it. You can get access to your regular stuff, milk, eggs. It is just so important. I mean, I have to travel 10 minutes,
But you have
15 minutes,
transportation though.
but I have transportation. Should I not have transportation?
That would be a problem.
It would be a huge problem for me to get to the grocery store and around me.
And
First,
then
I don't
pick up
even
your
have a bus.
medication.
And
See, we're not even
don't
thinking about that.
even
See?
forget about picking up my medication.
Yes.
I mean, riding the bus here in Houston is
It's
just
horrible.
disaster. They want to pass this new bond, but how can Congress really? I mean, I know we talked a little bit about infrastructure as well too, but we need not only infrastructure, but we also need massive transit. So we need Congress to approve funds for people to create new ideas on how to transport more people in a short amount of time, and give funds. Say, hey, we're gonna give you, 50 cents on the dollar, or we'll match dollar per dollar of what you
Your bus
spend
card or
for
something.
you to create a rapid transit system, or for you to create a subway system. Right now they don't provide any kind of funding.
No.
I think they used to, but I'm pretty sure with this new administration, it was like 50 cents it was like dollar for dollar, and now it was like, oh, we'll match you like at 25 cents or whatever. And people were like, oh no, I don't have no time for this. And so
Wasted time.
infrastructure sucks,
Yeah.
Yes.
especially
Yeah,
in Houston.
Yeah, especially in the 18th congressional district. You look at the
Yes.
77 and 78 bus lines that run up through North Forest and Fontaine and Setagas. These bus lines, in some cases, are traveling through the neighborhoods that rely on public transportation
they
more
rely.
than other neighborhoods,
That's
and
right.
they're running every 60 minutes.
Yes.
Yes.
And so you go to the other side of town, the
10
west
to
side of
15
town,
minutes.
12, 9.
44 line running every 15, 30
See?
minutes.
Yes.
On either side of Garden Oaks and Oak Forest, you got bus lines that are running every 15, 30 minutes, and multiple bus lines. And so the Metro, you talked about the Metro Next plan that's going to be up on the ballot in November, the first Tuesday in November. And you look at their plan, they've got it broken down in general 3 or 4 buckets. You've got light rail, you've got the bus rapid transit, the BRT, you've got this other bucket of money, that's the smallest bucket of money, that's miscellaneous, basically, right? And it's the one that is most needed for our community. Because when I'm driving through neighborhoods, I see, we've got about 4,000 bus stops throughout the metro bus system throughout the area. And less than half have bus shelters, a place for somebody
True.
to sit.
That was going to be my sole question. So
Yeah.
go ahead and go into
so,
it.
So
Yes.
Less than half have bus shelters, a place for
Yes.
people to sit
Yes.
and get out of the
rain
sun
or the
or
heat or whatever.
just relax a little while they wait 50
Uh-huh.
minutes for
Yes.
their bus line.
Yes.
And so when
Yeah.
it's frustrating when I'm driving by and I see somebody sitting under the
three and
sun
four children.
for this bus line, or somebody laid out on the grass because they have no place to sit
Doing
waiting
the
on the
best
bus.
they can.
And so we're about to go to the ballot to provide billions of dollars for a bus line. A BRT to IAH and a train to Hobby. But we've got all of these hundreds of miles of lines that still require some additional work.
Yes.
So whether that's additional buses to reduce wait times, that is bus shelters for people to sit and wait for the bus, we got to address those first, in my opinion. And there's not enough. From what I've seen, the plan indicates pretty specifically where the train and BRT lines may go, but very vaguely about where the other improvements to the infrastructure will go. And so that's a big question for me, and unfortunately I don't feel like Metro's doing enough about talking about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. That was gonna
Yes,
was gonna
yes.
be my, my little sticking point. We're gonna vote on this massive plan, but I don't see them talking about what they're doing for their current riders. The people who are currently taking the bus, who do utilize it. If you miss one bus, or if your
you
bus is
forget
late,
it.
you can forget it.
Yeah.
Why can't Metro have the same thing like Uber does?
Yes.
Where it tells you where that bus is, so you know it's
Yeah.
coming at 2:00. I mean, their little app, it does not work. It may tell you that there's a bus coming
It ain't coming.
and you're like 1 minute away.
I don't see
1
no
minute
bus.
goes by. All right, 53 minutes. Your next bus arrives in 53 minutes, and you're like, what happened to my bus that I waited 53 minutes for the
That bus
first time?
gone.
So that means that you're not only late another
For
50
work
minutes,
or whatever.
but then your next bus is going to be late,
Hey, Terrell.
and so forth. And if you have to catch 3 buses,
Oh Lord.
just to get around town,
Just to get to work.
just to
on
get to
time.
work on time. I mean, I told you earlier I have a dog walking company,
Yes.
and so going from one client to when I did not
That
have
ain't gonna
transportation, I was literally all day. I would wake up at 4:00 in the morning, and I would get home usually around midnight, 1:00 in the morning, just exhausted from taking the bus, walking from one place to one place. Sometimes it would just be easier to walk than take this bus. No shelters,
Nothing.
no bench, just a pole,
That's
and
it.
the sun on you, and you're like, there's no shade, no nothing for me to escape this
When you're
massive
right
heat. So thank you
Thanks,
so
Ray.
much for you
Yes,
bringing it up
bringing
even
it
before
up.
I could.
Yeah,
Because
it's a big issue.
I see that because I am a bus rider. I do ride the bus, not often because I can't, because it doesn't make any sense.
With your company.
I just can't do it, But even to get to, on days that I have a late day, I only have 2 or 3 clients. I'm like, oh, I could maybe take the bus today. It would take me an all day event to do it. So we need to have like Congress say, we're gonna approve infrastructure, and part of this infrastructure is gonna go to transportation. Improve. Like let's have this cut out this little branch, saying that we're gonna provide rapid transit, whatever this looks like. It could be a rail, it could be whatever. But why are we spending so much money on the rails when they don't really get utilized to begin with? I mean, they're only full during the rodeo.
Oh yeah.
I mean, during the rodeo,
Only
they're
one line,
packed.
Right.
But that's once a year
That's
for 10 days. What about the rest of the 300
Yeah,
days that are out there?
It's pretty simple math for me. A majority of the people are using the bus line. There's a lot of
Yes.
folks who, how that's their main mode of
That's it.
transportation. And how do we expect people to go to work, provide for themselves, and contribute to society if there's this hindrance, this roadblock, for them to do that? And we got to provide a better infrastructure for them so that they can provide for themselves and our community. And when you look at this bond program coming up for a vote, they've got this system called Boost. It's not very well defined, and the one line that they talk about it being impacted is a line on Westheimer. And we all know Westheimer's a very busy road. There's a lot of
Yes.
people along it, but at the same time, there are a lot of other locations that need to be boosted. More buses in a lane. In a on a line
Yes.
to reduce those wait times, and we need this infrastructure so that people aren't having to wait in the sun. I mean, maybe if this was San Diego, we don't need bus shelters, but this isn't San Diego.
Mm-mm,
It's
we're
70
Texas.
degrees and cool and
Yeah.
breezy,
Yes.
every day of the year. This is Houston. It's hot, it's humid, and it rains half the time.
Yes.
And so it's hard enough to get to the bus stop from where you live, right?
Yes.
You still, in some cases,
You
there's no
still-
sidewalk,
No.
Nope.
right? It's
Nope.
hard enough to get to that bus stop. You're already
Right,
having to
it's
be in
not
the
over.
sun and the heat and the humidity and the rain.
Yes.
The least we can do is provide some shelter for people to be at for when they're having to wait for the bus.
I just have a question. I know I haven't been to Congress, to hear how they do the legislature, but I have been in in Austin. Just like we're sitting down here talking about, how to make things better. Why is it so hard, when you get into the meeting with everybody else? Is it because everybody else has their own viewpoint? They don't want to spend money on this. So how does that process work?
Yeah, this is a big long-term
I know.
issue that's been going on, unfortunately, for a very long time.
Yes.
And we've allowed, frankly, our politicians to get away with it for too long.
Yes.
Because by and large, we're concentrating on our lives. We're concentrating on finding that next job, taking our
Yes.
kids to school, taking them to the Little League practice.
Yes.
And we expect a certain amount of, or we provide some certain level of trust
Yes.
in our public officials
You're right,
to do
you're right.
what's right. And oftentimes, too many people go to Washington, and their only issue, their main issue, is do and say whatever it takes to get reelected. That's
Yes,
the only
yes,
thing really
yes.
they're thinking about.
Yes.
And that's how they're constantly analyzing their decision-making process when they should be representing their
district.
main issue should be representing their district, being a voice of the people of their district in
Yes.
Washington, D.C.
Yes.
But oftentimes, too many folks go to Washington and they get caught up in everything that is Washington.
Yes.
And so they're concentrating on trying to get on the cover page of their home newspaper,
CNN.
the 6 o'clock news, CNN, and they lose sight of their
The
district
average
and why they should be there representing the people of the district. And so that's a big part of it. And then right now we're in this hyper-partisan mode, unfortunately.
Right.
Where the mood and tenor is such that people retract into their own corners, and no matter what issue you're talking about, people just want to assume I'm on this side of the field
And
you're
you're
on
on
that
that side of the field.
and there's nothing to be talked about. When I talk to folks about issues,
Yes.
they may initially say, want to talk about party, but once we start talking about the issues,
Yes.
we find that there's so much more that we agree on
Than we
don't-
disagree.
than we disagree on. And so for those in Washington, to answer your question, unfortunately, they're predominantly worried about getting reelected.
Mm.
And this partisanship has pushed that even to be more of an issue. And so, and a big part of that, and the reason that's so prevalent and continues, is because so many people, specifically in the House of Representatives or in Congress, have been there for so long.
Yes.
And so that's what
Correct.
they know.
Yeah. That's all they know.
That's it.
And that's their livelihood. Like, they've been there 10,
For so
15,
long,
20
yeah.
years, some cases 30 years. They died there.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're right.
And they have a hard time remembering why they started,
Because it's been so long ago.
right? And they are in a position where they don't feel comfortable in doing anything else.
Okay.
And there is a power in incumbency.
Mhm.
It is easy to get reelected because most people are just looking at the name and name recognition.
That's it.
when they
That's
go
all.
and vote.
That's all they
So
know.
so long as you generally stay out of hot water, you can continue to get reelected.
Oh, okay.
And so long as you go along to get along, right?
Yes,
Do whatever
yes.
it takes just to stay
Don't rock
there.
the boat so much.
Don't rock the boat. Like, we're in a small team. There's only
Yes.
435
Don't say
members
too
of
much.
Congress.
Yeah.
When you break it down by party, there's there's 200 or so people. It's a small group of people that can look out for one another. And
it makes sense now
and
since
they
you
all
broke
have
it down.
power. And so, it's hard to it shouldn't be hard
Yes.
to get things done. It is hard work, but it shouldn't be this hard.
Yes.
And so, what we need is new people. We need people with fresh ideas and fresh
Yes.
approaches in there, doing it for the right reason, and not caring about being reelected, but only caring about doing what's right for the people in their district.
So much of this is
Yes.
so good.
Yes, yes.
Right now we have an extraordinary president who thinks that breaking the law, he is above the law, So congressional oversight, I think, is a key part, to your job, as well to holding the executive branch of government under control. So what is your, so why is congressional oversight important, and what are the key principles that support your congressional oversight?
Yeah, so there's a lot of congressional oversight. It's a big part of Congress, and so unfortunately we have Donald Trump. We all know that night, the first November 2016, where Donald Trump was elected, and it was a tough time, I believe, for a lot of Americans. And we're seeing now, he's been in office now coming up on 3 years. We dealt with him for another year and a half or so before that. So over 4 years, 4.5 years or so, Donald Trump has been infecting our society. And young people coming into following government and politics for the first time at whatever age, are being empowered by what they hear from the president. And it's a sad state that we're in. There's going to be a lot of work to undo, not just the work that he's done as president, but the impact he's had on society, young people into following government for the first time, that we're going to have to undo. And undoing so much of what he's done is not going to be able to be done overnight. It's going to take longer maybe than what he's done. And so that's a big issue for me, is undoing this turmoil he's embedded into so many different corners of our country. And as far as oversight, multiple facets of oversight the Congress can and should and is doing right now, whether that's in some of the departments of transportation and energy that we've seen, environmental regulations rolled back in the last couple of years. You talked about this earlier, about funding for HHS and through the HHS system and healthcare. And so there's a lot of that has to be undone, that we are somewhat overseeing and being able to moderate, but there's some, just because of the executive branch and the power that's instilled in it in the Constitution, and there's only so much that we can do. And so the biggest role that we have, that we're seeing today, is the impeachment inquiry that we've been listening to here the last several weeks, and last several months for that matter. And so we see the House Judiciary Committee and other committees in the House beginning to look at and investigate the different parts of the executive branch, all the way up to the White House and the Oval Office, to identify these issues, these things that the president's been doing, that's using his office for political gain, frankly. And so the House Judiciary Committee, under the under leadership of Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, is going down that path. I feel like they're going to be doing a good job of it. I feel they understand how important it is to execute on the requirements built into the Constitution. The founders of our country unfortunately envisioned this. They understood, it's written in the Federalist Papers, of what persons with power can do in some cases, human nature in some cases. And so there are these checks and balances, and the Congress has that check, and they are going down that path right now, and we need to continue that. We need to continue it as deeply and as thoroughly as possible, also as quickly as possible, to not interfere with the presidential campaign coming up next year. But we also need to do a very thorough job, because this is potentially, looks like the president taking advantage of his office in a way that we all know shouldn't be done.
Yes.
And what has been done needs to be very detailed, identified, and we know that although the president cannot be indicted through
Yes.
criminal action right
Yes,
now while
yes.
he's
In office.
we know that once he leaves, he can be. And so we need to be doing two things. We need to be continuing this investigation in the House. We probably understand that the odds of him being convicted in the Senate will not occur. And we need to be prepared for when he leaves to then concentrate on taking back the executive office, win the presidency, and then let the law enforcement and judicial system take its course once he leaves office.
That is so important just because, right now we have, no matter who is the president at the moment, there should be some checks and balances out there to, for all of us, for all citizens. I have to obey the rules. I can't, if a cop pulls me over, I'm going to be like, I'm the president or whatever. You don't get to do whatever, but it's just, we need to be able to hold the people accountable. And so my other follow-up question was going to be like, do you think he should be still investigated when he leaves office? And you said yes.
Yes.
Continue that investigation. Well, after, because I feel like like I read an article that said, probably he's going to use his like his resignation for that people don't, so that Congress doesn't go after. It's like, I'll resign, but as part of my, if I resign, you can't prosecute me and or my children. He's claiming all these things with him as well too, but his children are just as involved in the White House and doing foreign affairs. Someone in China getting patents. So should we be looking into his kids as well too?
Yeah. So we've seen this play out. We saw this in the 70s with Nixon. Nixon resigned.
Watergate.
His Vice President Ford came in, pardoned him. So at that time, the idea was that the country not go through this criminal action or enforcement of a former president. But I think we're in the same place. I think it may be even worse. We don't have all the facts. That's why we have to allow the House committees, the Judiciary Committee, and other committees to do their work, do their investigation, and really allow us to see what's transpired in the Oval Office and who's been doing the dirty work for the president and what he's done directly, and be held accountable. And so that process needs to take its course. And I feel like it will. And I feel like we will see. I don't think we've seen everything. I think there's more crimes, frankly, that will come to light. And we need our judicial and law enforcement system to be in a place to continue that investigation and go through the legal system as deeply and properly as possible. Because like you said, it's not fair that any one of us if we were to do a crime like potentially the president has done, we go to jail, but he doesn't. That can't be the case in this scenario. It's too important because we're talking about the presidency, the office of the presidency. If anybody should be held accountable through the criminal court system, it's our president. And because what that happens, it breaks down our structure. Everything that we built or that's been built and created for us over the last couple of centuries is impacted, and we need to show not only the people here in America but those all around the world that we still are the greatest democracy on the planet.
If you guys are just joining us, you guys are listening to POZ Impact. We are Houston's first radio show dedicated to people living with HIV, their friends and family, on Real Talk 100 Radio. We have been talking with Marc Flores. He is running for Congress, Texas District 18. And before we dive into some more questions, because I do have a couple more questions for you, just regarding Planned Parenthood and regarding immigration. But before we dive in, Lady Hill has been with me for a while, since day one. I was telling Mark, Like we both
She'll
started at
be
the
here.
same. We both started at the same
Yes,
time.
we did.
Started Monday. She started Tuesday,
Yep.
and we've been together.
Ever
Like
since.
on each other's shows ever since. And so she's having like a great events going on. So I want to make sure that she gets a little bit of time to. You just had this huge event.
Yes, our domestic violence event
Saturday or
yesterday.
Sunday.
Well, yeah, Saturday.
Was it Saturday. It was
Saturday.
huge.
It was huge.
And I just want to have people, tell you a little bit more.
We had a fabulous time, and what it was for, it's a domestic violence event, and we had and tell their story. We had one lady, Miss Latrell. She lost her son to domestic violence because her ex-husband killed the baby trying to get back at her. That was just one of the incidents, and a lot of ladies talking about being beaten just about every day, not having any options, not being able to get out of any of the situation. So I felt that it was so important to have an event where ladies could come and talk and get resources available to them. But my ultimate goal was I wanted 50 bags for us to be able to take 2 ladies in the domestic violence shelter. I only asked for 50, but I ended up getting 160 hygiene bags for the women and their children. And I do have 30 backpacks, so people still sending me boxes of backpacks. They're still cash apping me money and everything. And the good part about it, because we did have this on live, one of the speakers, Miss Jennifer, got 5 calls from ladies that heard that we had resources and we could get them out, and she was able to get 5 ladies to shelters over the weekend from Saturday until today. We were able to get 5 ladies out. They said by just hearing us speak,
the right people were listening to.
Speak, and they were listening, and they know we would come and get them and get their children, and that's just what she did. So this morning, I had a call from a lady that was in Conroe. Her nieces and nephew had heard me speak at the event, and she called because the children said that they had wanted to meet me. So their aunt was providing a domestic violence walk and parade in Conroe October the 26th. At first I told her I couldn't come because that's the day I'm having my birthday party. I'm like, okay. She said, hear me out. So this is the story the children wanted to tell me. Their dad, whatever, he shot mom in the back of the head while she was asleep. Mom was sleeping so she could get up and go to work. So dad decided he's going to shoot her and blow her head off in the back. That's not the heartening part. He decided, after I shot her, I'm going to go get these 3 kids from the daycare. Now y'all go upstairs and wake up your mom.
Oh, that was
I'm
so
like,
horrible.
I will be there for those children. How heartening and how cool is that? Those children's mother head is already blown off, already shot up. Why would you go get those babies from daycare, tell them go up there to wake up their mother? Yes, and I agreed to be the voice for their mother and those children on October the 26th. I will be speaking again like I spoke on City Hall last week about domestic violence. So I will be in Conroe speaking on the steps of City Hall or whatever they call it in Conroe. I will be there speaking. And if it's any ladies again that need domestic violence bags or you need us to help you with your exit plan, please call me at 832-417-1696. Again, 832-417-1696. And we have partnered with a sex trafficking organization because a lot of those ladies men are beating them and they have no choice coming through sex trafficking. So I have partnered with them to donate 20 bags to ladies, and a lot of them, they're having a lot of children are coming through sex trafficking, ages 8, 9, 10, and 11. They're rescuing off the street. So I told her, yes, I will provide bags for those children also, because I have 160. I didn't need but 50, but I will make sure that those go to the sex trafficking organization to help the ones that the children or the ladies or whoever they bring off the street. And also next month we will be having our STEM program, myself with J. Brill Handmade Goods. So we will be teaching the girls and children how to make soap, how to do all kind of STEM projects. So make sure you call me. We're going to be right there in the Acres Home area because there's not a lot of STEM programs on there. And we're offering this program for free for 20 children. They could be Acres Home, 3rd Ward, 5th Ward, 4th Ward. Make sure you call me if you want to be a part of this STEM program. It's 832-417-1696. And remember, Acres Home, 3rd Ward, the city of Houston, if you need Thanksgiving dinner, make sure you contact me. We're providing that also. And also, I have partnered with Thomas Street Clinic.
Yes, yes.
We're going to be providing food and
Yes.
we're going to be providing dinner. So I already donated my turkeys. I'm going to be doing pies too, water, whatever else I needed. And also, I've been told they need board members, so I will be down there to be on that board to help you guys out.
We do need
So if
board
anybody
members.
else want to come out there and help me be a board member for Thomas Street Clinic, yes, I do have the experience because I was on the City of Houston CPG board as a board member for 7 years, and my best friend and my good friend was Ray Hill. So he taught me a lot, and he was the one that got me my board position.
Yes.
So I know what I'm doing, and I want to come there to help the people, bring resources to our people at Thomas Street Clinic. Also, December the 2nd week and Saturday, we have chartered a bus from First Class Tours, which it was donated to us. We're taking the children from Acres Home, 3rd Ward, 4th Ward, all over to see Christmas lights in the city of Houston. We will be going to River
Y'all
Oaks,
hear
we're
that?
going to Clear Lake, we're going to the Heights area, areas that our children no
River
longer,
Oaks.
they will not have access to these areas. I want them to know there's more than just the project. I want them to know there's more than just gang violence, because there's a world over there on the other side of 45 that there are people that live in houses that look like our apartment complexes. So I want to expose our children, but 15 of those seats I've set aside for my special need babies. So if your child has a special need, please contact me, because I do have an RN nurse that will be on board. And if you need me to make any kind of special accommodations, please let me know. We are more than willing to make accommodation. And everybody know my friend Sadiq was murdered by a coward. He was going to be my police officer that was going to be on my bus. But my family in blue, they're supporting me, so I will have a sheriff on the bus, you know, with us, because I'm a sheriff, I'm a chaplain for the Harris County Sheriff's Department, so I love my family in blue. And finally, we're giving away bicycles on that 3rd Saturday, so if you're in need of some Christmas toys or a bicycle, make sure you contact me, 832-417-1696. We have partnered with Mr. Clarence Miller. He's running for Harris County Commissioner. Bishop C.G. Williams and myself have partnered together, and we will be giving away 200 bikes for the city of Houston for children.
200
So
bikes.
make sure my family in Acres Home, 5th Ward, 3rd Ward, Acres Home, y'all come on out, especially all of my people. If you need bikes or you need toys for your children, please let me know. My number is 832-417-1696. That's all I'm going to tell you about for the end of the year. That's all we have until January. But make sure you support us, especially the Thomas Street Clinic. What do you still need? You still need more pies.
Thank you so much for reminding me. We still need pies. We need about 300 pies.
Okay, 300 pies.
Is it
Come on,
300?
y'all.
No, so 45 pies.
45.
Sorry,
Okay,
45 pies.
What are we going to do with 300? Okay.
45 pies. We need 45 pies. We need 300 rolls.
300 rolls.
And we need 300 bottles of water.
So it's 24 in a pack, so we need about 12 packs, just roughly.
Yes.
Okay, y'all know Food Town has water,
And
$1.99
we have been
for
so
24.
blessed because this dinner was just not about to happen. Thomas Street, so I go
Oh,
to
it was
Thomas
going to
Street,
happen.
and we were discussing in our board meeting how we don't have turkeys and how
It was going to happen.
a lot of grocery stores they were saying no to us, saying they didn't want to give us any turkeys.
That's all right.
And I was like, oh my goodness. So I posted on Facebook and I had some friends, 28 people
Yes.
donated turkey.
Yes, we did.
28 people. So last year we had 20 turkeys, and so we ran out of food.
This year.
We're not running out of food this year.
Not this year.
I was like, we're feeding these people who come in to eat
Yes.
barely get a meal a day.
Yes, and we want to make
And
sure we have more
Thanksgiving
than enough.
is
What's
their
the date
meal.
again?
And I believe it is the. Oh.
Okay, we can put it
yes,
out on Facebook.
we'll put it out on
Make-
Facebook.
What's your number, Josh? They can contact you.
Contact me at 832-573-7274.
Yes.
Again, we still need board members as well too. So if you
I'm
want to
already
come,
here, so we need two
if you want to
more.
come on the board meetings every it's the third Tuesday of
Yes.
every month
Yes.
from 11 to 1.
Yes.
So the advisory council happens from 11 to 12, and then
Yes.
the board meets from 12 to 1.
Yes.
So it's really important that we support our community.
Yes, we have to.
But we have about 10 minutes left, and I have some more questions for Mark
Oh,
because I
yeah.
want to get into
And if you're
immigration.
available for us, please come out to Thomas Street Clinic and help us.
Yes, we need volunteers
Yes,
as
we
well
need
too.
volunteers for Thomas Street Clinic or all the things we got going on in Acres Home. If you want to be a
Yes.
part of it, let us know. We got a lot going on. Our
I do.
STEM program, we're getting the community garden going. We have a lot of things we're doing in Acres Home. But like I said, with the STEM program, we're going to take that like Acres Home, 3rd Ward, 4th Ward, because a lot of those programs are not accessible to our children in those communities. They don't have access to STEM programs or STEAM or music or piano lessons because piano lessons are too expensive. Even though the children do want to incline in music, it's just not an option. And so we're bringing all of those. We're having musicians to come, giving free lessons and, helping the children out. And like I said, that's why I tell, we have so many kids, like I said, the bus for the tour is free of charge. It's going to be on the first class tour bus. That was within 30 minutes we were booked. So I contacted the attorney and they're willing to purchase us another bus. And I just had somebody from Ailey's to call. They want to join us also. So if we do need a third bus, it is possible
Love
for
that.
the children. Yes, because I thought it was so important because a majority of my children have never been out of Acres Home.
I believe
They've
it.
never been
I
anywhere.
believe it 100%.
And then when I show them maybe on the smart board or the computer the areas of River Oaks, because people will put it on there for Christmas how their areas will look. They thought those were apartment complex. I say, no, baby, those are people homes. Those are not apartment complex. And they just cannot believe that people actually live like that because nobody have ever exposed them to that. And a lot of things is so important because a lot of my children, nobody has ever talked to them about college. So they have no clue what college is because I'm telling them, I'm going to get my doctorate right now. They had no clue what I was talking about. I said, I came right from where you were coming. So if I can get out and get my doctorate in education, you can do the same thing too. They had no clue what was college, and it was so sad. I would bring them like kiwi, blueberries, just basic fruit that we know of. They had no clue what I was eating. They said, what is this? I had to explain to them what a kiwi was. We would go to the computer and pull it up. They didn't know blueberries. They didn't know raspberries. See, because they cannot afford them. If you go in the store, sometimes I have to look. I'm like, okay, I have to get them next time. But that's not an option for them, and their normal meal probably will be Roman noodles or hot Cheetos.
That goes right back to food insecurities.
That's just what it is. When I ask them, well, I just want some hot Cheetos. No, we cannot eat that.
Right.
And a lot of my children only get food when they come to school, the breakfast and lunch. And we as teachers, what we would have to do is I would have food in the classroom and I would feed my children before they go home because I know a lot of them wouldn't get food. And that's what I did with the summer. Even though we had the summer school program, what we had left, we would make sure the children would take it home with them so they would have something to eat in the evening until they got back in the morning for the breakfast program.
I don't understand why we don't have free meals. If you go to school, your meal should be free.
Well, some of the districts are going to that now. I know
but
Spring and
We're
HISD.
we're
Yes.
barely getting there. But why hasn't this been already
And I know
a thing?
HISD
This is
just
crazy.
started it too, where they're starting to feed the children the dinner in the
Yes.
evening. So I'm going to do that at my school, make sure the children have dinner, and then we will still send food home with them because they do have smaller brothers and sisters that are not in school. So this is some of the issues, we try to alleviate for our children, because hunger is real for a lot of our children in my area, which is Acres Home and Fifth Ward. It's not something that somebody told me. It's something that I hear children's stomach growling while we're trying to do the reading program, and we have to stop, because I can't teach over somebody's stomach that's growling.
Yeah, and that's something, we were talking about this earlier, and this is our young people.
Yes.
These are
Our
kids,
children and our
growing
seniors.
up on fast food.
Yes.
And
Takis and Roman noodles.
Right,
that's all they know
the
for dinner.
Nutrition
Yes.
that we all need, and so it's our young people, kids.
You're right.
We got to be doing everything for our kids.
You're right. You're telling the
It's
truth.
not their fault, right? We got to be helping them in whatever it is that we can, wherever we can.
Yes, wherever we can.
To get some good nutrition
Right.
in their bellies.
And I would love for you to be a part of our programs we're doing there in Acres Home, and all the programs we're doing in STEM, all the programs we're doing for the city of Houston.
When I'm in places like Pleasantville
Yes.
and North Forest, these are the stories I hear as well.
Yes.
Hey Mark, let's set up something, and because these kids here never been to a baseball game, let's
Never.
say at the Astros. They've never
Astrodome.
been to a restaurant.
They've
They
never
don't
been
know
to a
what it's
college
like.
game,
They
because
don't
I
know
took
what
a
it's
lot
like
of them to U of H.
to just be at a restaurant and
They have
proper
no
etiquette.
clue. They don't
And
even
so-
know what a fork is.
That's right. Or like you were talking about, they don't know the other side. They only know this
Acres
neighborhood.
Home, right
we want
here.
them to get
That's
out
all
of the
I
neighborhood
want
and
them
be
out.
exposed to different things right here in our own city. Doesn't have
Yeah.
to, we're not even asking
No,
them to
we're
go
not
outside
going
the
far.
city.
I'm going
We're
right
to
across the
Galveston
freeway. Nope. I'm
couple
going
miles
right across
away,
the
10,
freeway. That's
15,
all I'm
20 minutes
going.
away. And
Even
so
the
there's so much
Heights
here.
area. We're
What's that?
going over there to the Heights area just to show
yeah,
them.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
so we gotta, and this is part of that non-book education,
Yes.
right? Educating our young people on the things that aren't just in the book,
Not
but
curriculum
in society,
based.
and let those seeds be planted in their minds,
Yes,
and
yes.
allow them to be the next entrepreneur,
Yes,
the
or
next
whatever
business
they
owner, or
desire.
whatever it is they want to do. Volunteer, get into
Whatever.
the arts is
Yes.
a big thing we don't see enough in our schools
No, we
right now.
don't.
We don't have enough funding, just like the vocational programs
You're
were pulled
right.
out of our K through 12 programs. Our art
Right.
systems have been funded or been gutted from funding, and so
You're right.
these young people who we know there are plenty that are want to be educated and involved in the arts, whether that's band
Yeah.
or whatever the case may
Whatever
be.
it
We need to
is.
be able to give them at least those options, those opportunities.
Yes.
And we're not doing it, but this exposing them to
That's what we're
different parts
doing.
of the city.
Just the
is
basic
equally
stuff.
important type of education that we need
Yes.
to provide our young people.
Right, and then we have also, because we have some engineers from NASA that's working with us with the STEM program, we're taking them out there to NASA, showing them you can do computers. It's other things you could do if you come out to NASA. Engineering, they have all spectrum. But if you never expose them to them, just like a basic game of chess, those kids have no clue what chess is. And chess is a strategic game. So if you can get it up in your mind, you can get anything. So I'm exposing them to chess also.
Yeah. I was out in Pleasantville this past summer, and they had their new community center there that
Yes.
the city built, and they have the seniors from their community come to the community center and are supported a summer program for kids,
Yes,
and then
yes,
an
yes.
after school program during the
Love
school
it,
year.
love it, love it.
And so you see these
Yeah.
young people coming to
Yes.
the community center, a city site that provides things like chess for
The
them
basic
to play,
things, yes.
basketball if they want to.
Yes,
But
they have
there are
options.
some adults, some seniors there that are giving their time.
And a lot
to
of them are
allowing them
retiring,
to
have a lot of
see-
skills.
Yeah, allowing them to see what's out there.
Right.
And these little things, we're going to impact these young people for the rest of their lives. We need to be doing more of that within our own community.
Yeah, and another thing I'm doing is story time with Lady Hale. What I do, because I know most of my kids have phones, but when they get home, they have nobody to read to them and talk to them. So what I do, what I had to pre-record it tonight, what I do is every night I read a bedtime story to my children. They know, get on the phone at 8 o'clock because the story is coming in and we can get interactive, and I talk to them and we read our bedtime story. We have our little snack, and then we go to bed. Because they told me, no, we don't have books in the home. And then I don't have anybody to read the books to me when I get home. So that's something we're using technology and literacy. So those are some of the things I do every night, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 8:30, story time with Lady Hale.
Great,
And that's for
great.
all
That's awesome.
over the city. Or I have even all over the country, because I have a village in Africa. They are like a day behind us. So they get it the next day, and he sets the computer up, and it's like 20, 25 kids. They're from the village looking at Lady Hale's story time.
Awesome.
So it's about literacy and reaching our next generation.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Mark, can I ask you?
Sure.
I have like one more question that I can ask you before
Sure.
we run out of time.
Sure.
But there's two main things that I want to ask. DACA.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
What is your
I
I mean,
don't know. There's, you don't need to be spending much time on it. Obviously, the DACA kids here, the only country they know, they're Americans. They need to be provided
Yes.
citizenship so that they're not living in fear of being deported.
Yes, I hate that.
You know.
and what
there's
about
enough-
with that being said, okay, so check on DACA. What about immigration?
Sure.
Our current administration, they have this fear. They put out this fear that we're being overwhelmed by immigrants.
Yeah.
What is your
It's
take on
sad.
that?
Yeah,
Do we
it's
think we need to build a
sad.
wall?
Yeah, so a handful of things in immigration, right? First, DACA, folks here in our country, we need to provide them the U.S. citizenship so that they can continue to provide for themselves, for their families, for our communities, and go on and living a productive life here in America. Oftentimes, the only country that they know, and they need not to be living in fear. They need to be accessing healthcare and education, just like everyone else. Those that are here and don't have status, we also need to be providing them a pathway to citizenship.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of these people have come here and have done some of the hardest work
Yes,
here in
yes.
our country for our own, for the rest of America, right?
I
And so
agree.
this is a business that I was in construction, so I came across this a lot. I share with folks here in the medical center, not too very far away. We were doing a high rise, and I remember taking that construction elevator up to the 25th floor of a building that we were building, and got up on the top floor. They were about to pour concrete on it the next morning at 3 in the morning. The floor was filled with rebar. I was walking along the rebar and looked out across the city, an amazing skyline off in the distance in downtown Houston, an amazing skyline here in the foreground of the Texas Medical Center, and here at my feet in this 30,000 square foot building that was going to be poured at 3 in the morning the next morning were 60 men, all of whom were probably immigrants or were immigrants, doing literally back-breaking work, bending over and picking up rebar and moving it, picking up and tying rebar and moving it. And as I walked across the rebar slab, or soon-to-be slab, everyone that was working there was whistling. Everyone was enjoying the work they were doing. They were literally whistling while they worked. And the reason they were enjoying their work is they were here in this country.
Yes, yes.
They were providing for themselves. They were providing for their family. They were
Yes.
providing for their children in an amazing country. And unfortunately, those men went off in the union in fear of being deported. But they
Yeah.
were doing the hardest work that we can ask, that we have in this country. And they're literally building this country for the next generation. So we need to provide them a pathway to citizenship. We also need to we need to adjust our visa laws. We've got these archaic laws that are identifying numbers and groups of people that can and cannot come into our country. These laws are far past dated, and so we gotta completely reimagine and create our visa program so that we can provide for those who want to come into our country legally to work. That we know people want to come here and work.
Yes,
We
yes,
know
yes.
we need people to work. So let's create that program that allows that to be done. We've done it before. This is not new to us. We know how to do it. We just got to have the political will to do it. And then we need to provide the funding at our ports of entry, where we are able to identify those things that we don't want coming into our country. And then ultimately, we got to get to the root cause, right? And so that is looking at the countries that people are fleeing from. They're fleeing fear from crime and gangs. They're fleeing poverty, frankly. And again, we've got those jobs here for them to come to. But we've got to assist these countries. We've done it in the 80s with Mexico. We ask other people in other countries around the world to address their migration issues. And here we are in our own backyard having a similar issue. We got to be, because we are the the big country here on this continent, addressing
Yes,
the
yes,
issues here.
yes.
And so we got to be looking at this country and investing in propping up these countries so that people don't have to or don't feel like they have to flee their country, the only land that they know, their language, their culture, their community, to trek across 3 or 4 countries, not knowing what's on the other end of their journey, or if they may even make it to there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to be working in those countries as well to put them in a place where people can stay in the only country that they know.
Yes.
And last one,
Mhm.
but the most important one. How can people get in touch with you?
Sure,
Yes.
yeah, I appreciate
How,
that.
how can, you were a grassroots volunteer, you
Yes,
did it for
yes.
Betso. We need the same people who do,
Yes, we
will,
do.
who did the same thing for Betso to do for you,
Right.
to get elected, we need volunteers. So how can people get in touch with you,
Sure.
and how do you plan on staying involved with the community?
Yeah. So the way we're going to stay involved in the community is we're going to continue doing what we've already been doing. So we've been going to every precinct, going to every neighborhood, every civic club, every super neighborhood. And so we've met some of the most amazing people in doing that work. And what I've seen is we've seen so many leaders in the community already, experts in their field, whether that's education or advocates in their community
Yes.
or leaders in environment. And we want to put ourselves, our office, our team in a position to not just win in March, win in November, and provide a seat at the table for all of these leaders that are already been leading their communities on these different issues to have a voice in our office when we're brought into office in January of 2021 and begin to address these issues. And so that's how we're going to continue to stay in the community. We're going to empower the leaders that we already have. We have enough amazing leaders in our community. We just need to empower them. They need somebody to provide them the pathway to address the needs and issues that we know how to address. No one person can address all the issues we talked about tonight
Yes.
or on any one of our websites. But together with the team that we've put together and we plan to put together once we win this election, and the team of amazing leaders in the community that have already been leading so much in their respective fields, we know together we can address all of these issues and achieve so much, not only for our country, but for our community, because a lot of these issues that we've been talking about today, primarily that we're focusing on, are local issues: infrastructure,
Yes.
immigration, education, jobs, economic prosperity, food deserts, etc.
Yes.
And so that's our plan. And the way people can contact us to get involved, we have a team of roughly 8 to 12 volunteers given on any given week, doing everything from picking up the mail to policy research to knocking on doors. They can go to our website at marcfloresforcongress.com. There's a button in there to volunteer and submit your information. We will reach out to you within 24 hours and let you know when's the next block walk that you can come out and participate in, or just come over to meet in our office and let us share with you our plan to win and how they can be involved. And so what we will do is we'll look at what people's strengths are and what the needs of our campaign are and match them up in a way
That's
to
fair.
help the campaign, but also keep them motivated. And people can also go to our Facebook page at Marc Flores for Congress on Facebook. You can like our page, share our page. You can share this video that I think you have up on your
Yes,
Facebook
we
page.
both have them.
Yes, people, please share.
You
Yes,
can send
share.
us a
And
direct
and,
message
and it's
on
Mark,
Facebook
it's
as well.
M-A-R-C.
Yes,
So
Yes,
people,
Marc
M-A-R-C,
with a C,
yes,
M-A-R-C, Flores for Congress.com. We're also on Instagram at MarcFlow Congress.
all right,
.com.
Mr. Flo.
Mark
And-
Flo.
I'm sorry, Marc Flores for Congress.
Oh, Flo, we
Instagram.
like
But
Flo.
I
on
like
Twitter,
that.
on Twitter, we're Marc Flow
All
Congress.
I like
right,
that, I
I like
like
Mark
that.
Flo.
I like my Flo.
MARCFLO Congress on Twitter, Marc Flores for Congress on Instagram and Facebook.
I
and
like
website.
that.
But yeah, you call me Marc Flo.
I like that. I like my Flo.
Flo.
Any closing statements that you would like to make? I thank you so much for coming on our show talking
Yes.
about. I think we talked a little bit when you arrived about HIV and how Houston it directly impacts. So just to reiterate a little bit, Houston is the number 12 in the nation for new HIV infections. diagnosis. People who, so when we were talking a little bit, HIV, we have care, we have funding for care, but we need funding for prevention. You know,
Mm.
so prevention is like the main thing that we need to work on. And like you said, you can't do it alone. I can't do it alone.
No,
We need to
no.
come together. So that's why I'm bringing in candidates here to talk about Houston. You know, I'm not sure why Houston is number 12 in the nation, but that needs to stop. And HIV needs to be eliminated because we have the tools. We just need the funding.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up. We didn't get a chance to talk about it very much, but our district, I think roughly 9 or 10 zip codes that have the highest number of people living with HIV are in our district.
Yes.
And so the issue of HIV and AIDS is an issue for Houston, like you talked about, but it is an issue for our 18th congressional district. And so it's something that we've seen, we've identified, we are talking about, we're researching. In fact, Izzy is on our team. He's done some research for us on the issue.
Oh, cool.
And they are putting together thoughts and ideas on not only the history of how we got to where we are today, but what we need to do to address it. There's when you look at all of the federal funding that comes out of Washington to address HIV and AIDS, both domestically and internationally, I think it's somewhere around 4 or 5, maybe 6% goes to prevention. And like you talked about, prevention is one of the most important things that we need to be doing is educating the people in the community, providing access to the drugs that people living with HIV require. And so there's a separate line item for funding for those drugs, and it's not adequate. And so when you look at the billions of dollars that we spend on HIV and AIDS in this country, when you break it down by each state, let's say Texas, and you break it down by Houston, it's really not much money, especially when you talk about prevention. And so we need to be increasing those numbers. And when you look over the last 4 or 5 years, the funding has not increased. It's been stagnant.
Yeah.
And so just from, and we know what happens with drug prices every year. We know inflation impacts the cost. And so we got to be providing additional funding for prevention and HIV/AIDS in our community.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on our show. I can't even thank you enough for being here and spending 2 hours with us just talking about issues.
Yeah.
It did go like this, but there's just so many more questions that I have to ask you. So you're gonna have to come back on our show once you win the primary, because you will win this. I'm so confident. So people, please go vote. And today was the last day to get registered to vote here in Harris County. But November elections, we have elections in November. We have primaries in March. We have a busy election season. So get registered to vote. And, make sure you view our video and see what, Marc Flores is all about. And if you are supportive of his issues, if you think that if you are in line with he views, go and support him. That's either by money, giving him $1, giving him $5, volunteering. He was just saying he had about 1,000 volunteers at his house when he was volunteering with Beto. That's incredible. And so now that he is actually running for office, we have to support the people who've been doing the grassroots, who have been doing the legwork already, who know the problems, and who are really, you have a fresh start. So you're like this eager. So when we start a new job, we want to change the world, instead of like, if you've been in your job for 18 years, you're like, oh, I don't need to do nothing. I'm okay with what I'm doing at the moment. I'm gonna stay in my corner. But that's why it's important to elect not only a fresh face, but somebody that aligns with your party or with your views, to making sure that when we're voting for somebody, we're not voting to regress our progress. We want to making sure that we're continuously progressing and continuously making sure that our minimum wage is going up. So if we had so much to talk about in this video, so if you guys have missed this video, go back and check on it. It will be on Facebook Live, and it will be on YouTube as well too.
and we'll make sure we tag you as well because we want to make sure that people who are googling, who's running for Congress, that they have an opportunity to check you out and to making sure that they can volunteer. And go to your website. It's Marc Flores, MARC Flores, FLORES for Congress.com. Go to his Facebook. Go to his Instagram. It's Marc Flo
Marc
and
Flo.
YouTube. I like that.
I like that.
Oh, Twitter. Sorry, Twitter. Twitter is Marc Flo. So thank you again
That's
for
a rap
showing
name,
up.
Marc Flo.
Thank you for your time, and that is a wrap, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wow.
You guys have been listening to POZ Impact. We are Houston's first radio show dedicated to people that with HIV, their friends and
Yes.
family.
Yeah, the
You can
fabulous
catch us
time.
live every Monday from 7:30 to 9:30
Yes.
Central Standard Time, right here on Real Talk 100 Radio. All right, we're gonna go
Yes.
to some music, guys.
Music.